Thank you. It's been a while. I've forgotten how to do this. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the meeting. Welcome to everyone watching online. Do we have any apologies, please?
Yeah, so we've just received apologies from Councillor Chris Weed, we've got Councillor Shepherd in attendance, and apologies from Sharon Kemp, and we have Judith Badger in attendance.
And apologies from Kate as well. Thank you. Okay, in which case on to item number 2, which is just announcements. Since we last met in June, obviously things have changed somewhat. We've had a general election with a new government, which I genuinely believe marks a new era for devolution. And we've already seen that change. Certainly from my perspective, it's felt fundamentally different. Mayors have been recognised from the off. Whilst I wasn't able to go to the meeting at number 10, I was able to dial in. And it was a sign, I think, of things to come that Keir, right in his first week, asked for mayors to come and join him in London to talk about what devolution looks like and what our regions need. I've had more meetings with ministers since July than I have had in the 2 years running up to that point, and that I think that does say something. I've been working closely with ministers to put forward our ambitions for South Yorkshire in areas we can work together. Clearly in areas such as public transport, talking to the brilliant Louise Haigh, one of our local MPs, tackling health inequalities, getting people back into work, the brilliant work that's been done and led in Barnsley. Mayors are now at the forefront of working with government to help them deliver on their ambitions. And I do think that within that, the voice of the North is also getting stronger, despite the promises that were made by the last government to the North. Time and again, we were let down, particularly when it came to things like transport spending. This new government is committed to the North, and Northern mayors are speaking with one voice. I was with the mayors last week at the manifesto for the North event, and then with the mayors on the weekend as we shuffled our way around the Great North Run, but also met to talk about how we might take forward the Great North brand, working with Sir Brendan Foster, which was a brilliant thing to be able to do. We have an agenda item later about the English Devolution Bill, which is, I think, an important step forward, devolving more powers, more responsibility to mayors and to regions. Early last month, people will know that we had what can only be described as a very difficult time here in South Yorkshire with violent disorder in Rotherham at Manvers. And I said it at the time repeatedly, everywhere I got the chance, and I'll say it again. Those people that took part in that violent disorder, that took part in that, what I think was a riot, don't represent who we are and what we are in South Yorkshire. The volunteers who came out the next day represent the best of South Yorkshire. And the people that were looking after each other in the wake of that are the best of South Yorkshire, and they are the real South Yorkshire, the real face of our communities. I do want to put on record, I've again said it repeatedly, but I do want to put on record my thanks to South Yorkshire Police, who did a very difficult job under extremely difficult circumstances. Over 50 officers suffered physical injuries, let alone what they went through on the day mentally, psychologically. Some of those officers that were on the front line that day had never been part of public order policing before, and yet were confronted with what senior and more experienced officers described as the most violent disorder they had ever seen. I've spoken to officers who were on duty outside the Holiday Inn, including mounted police and dog handlers, who all said the same thing. They'd never seen quite as much violence and aggression. So clearly we all know that work needs to be done to bring our communities together. I know that, having spoken to council colleagues, that you're already engaged in that work, as are we now. But that work does need to be taken forward clearly. In more positive news, as a board, we agreed to fund the tour of Britain, coming to South Yorkshire, which started in Sheffield and ended in Barnsley, and it was a brilliant event, absolutely fantastic, a resounding success, not least because of the number of people that were out on the streets despite the weather, coming out to cheer people on as they went through the 4 boroughs. So thank you to leaders for supporting that work. The Minister for Sport, one of our local MPs, Stephanie Peacock, joined me at the final stage of Barnsley, and I know that she's been really supportive of all of that work and the work we're doing on active travel as well. I'm sure you'll be pleased to hear that the first beds through our Safe Place to Sleep project have now landed. That Beds for Babies project has been delivered through Baby Basics, but supported through the funding that we've offered them. And I was privileged to be there when the first bed was delivered to 11-week-old Majesty and her mum, Mary. Mary's mum was at work. Mary's dad, sorry, was at work when we delivered the bed. But I think that just goes to show that this is about helping people who are in work as much as anybody else. You know, this is the scale of the poverty that we're facing across South Yorkshire, but it was a brilliant thing for us to be able to do, and that's happened because of the work that was done in this building and the support that you've offered throughout that project. So thank you very much for doing all of that, because it is a leading project nationally and doing really important work. We've now delivered over 200 beds, cots, Moses baskets to families right across South Yorkshire, and I'm incredibly proud of that. Okay, on to agenda item number 3, which is urgent items. I don't believe we have any urgent items. No. Which is on to item number 4 then. Items to be considered in the absence of public and press. I don't believe there are any of those either. Item number 5, declarations of interest by individual members in relation to any item of business on the agenda other than the standing items of interest, declarations of interest. Anybody got any new declarations of interest? No. Brilliant, thank you. Item number 6, reports from and questions by members. None have been received in advance of the meeting. Anybody want to chuck a last minute one in just to keep us on our toes? No? Okay, great. Number 7, receipt of petitions. None have been received in advance of the meeting, which takes on to item number 8, which is public questions. And we have received a question from Nigel Slack, who I know is here. Nigel, would you like to come up and just set the table? That'd be brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. This is a question about heritage, which may not surprise many of you in this building. The current government seems no more likely to ease the burden of austerity on local councils than the last. As a result, councils are having to further clamp down on spending, or else engage with the competitive funding rounds available to them. This is proving a disaster for the county's heritage assets. Sheffield has seen 2 unique heritage buildings demolished and another on the verge. I'm having a meeting about that later today. Rotherham has had to sell a heritage asset on the condition it be demolished in fear of future consequences if it was not. Barnsley has had to gain support from Historic England to save an endangered element of Cannon Hall. And Doncaster's 125-year-old Grade 2 Grand Theatre, empty for 30 years, has been sold at auction for less than £80,000, an indication of its parlous condition. These are only scratching the surface of heritage assets lost or endangered through underfunding of the sector, despite the fact it generates economically positive results for the region, worth £200 million in gross added value and employing 6,400 people. Will the SYMCA commit to a support package for the heritage sector worth a guaranteed percentage of regional investment funds received per annum? Will you encourage local councils to commit a proportion of their community infrastructure levy monies to the same support package? And can the authority look at a means of supporting heritage organisations to underwrite cash flow issues that can arise in bids made to external funders, even when successful? This makes a huge difference to organisations trying to attract funding from other external sources, such as the National Heritage Lottery Fund and the Architectural Heritage Fund. Thank you.
Thank you, Nigel. And thank you for how you champion heritage across South Yorkshire as well, because I know you do that tirelessly, including obviously coming here and asking that question. You mentioned about the challenges facing the new government, and frankly the challenges facing the new government are the ones they inherited from the old government, as I know you will understand all too well. This government have inherited a absolutely dire set of circumstances, not just in terms of the economy, but in terms of public services, in terms of everything from, as we've seen today, prisons and the prison estate and the overcrowding we've seen there, through to universities, through to local government finance and funding, which I know colleagues around the table are experiencing every single day. You did mention that that you you imply or said that this new government will also be following on with the competitive bidding processes, and I certainly hope that isn't the case. Indeed, you know, repeatedly the government have given us assurances that they want to move away from that competitive bidding process, so I absolutely hope that's the case. We're engaged in a conversation with the government about single pot funding, so be able to kind of have access to much more control over the funding that we do receive, because it comes to us rather than in lots of different funding streams through one single funding stream, which would help us to be able to fund things that we think are important and priorities much more effectively. But it's one of those where we would ask you to kind of watch this space as we have that conversation with the government. In terms of the challenges facing our historic buildings and our heritage assets in the region, I mean, you know this better than anyone really, and you're right to raise them. But I would also point to some of the good things that are going on, because there are some good things that are going on in South Yorkshire in terms of the work going on, for instance, at Wentworth Woodhouse, which is one of the best assets that we have, a brilliant example of people doing the work to try and restore and save that beautiful building. The work that's going on in Doncaster, bringing back to life the old high school for girls with the Daneham Gallery, Library and Museum being testament to the care and attention that the council over there taking. The works underway just over the road at Castlegate, which you'll know very well, or at Harmony Works, are great examples of where local councils working with the MCA are making a difference to those heritage assets. I think I assume I speak for everybody around this table that we would do much more if we had more. And the challenge we face in South Yorkshire, as in common with the government, as in common with every other local area, certainly in the north, is that we simply don't have enough money. And of all the money that we do have, there is a massive competition for that money locally and regionally, because there are so many challenges that we face, from our public transport network, which is genuinely at breaking point, to our skills system, right through to the work we need to do to grow our economy, to make the economy bigger and better, the work we want to do on culture and everything else besides. And there are massive challenges for us in South Yorkshire, so I wish I could commit to you that we're going to be able to find a lot more money to be able to support heritage, but I just don't think in good faith I can make that commitment here to you today. It's definitely something that I want to do more of, and I know other leaders do too, and we will do that wherever we possibly can. But I can't make a big and grand commitment to you here this morning, I'm afraid, that says that we will be able to do X or Y because of the challenges that we face and the size and scale of those. With respect to the particular suggestions around supporting the underwriting of cash flow, though, I'm more than happy to take advice on that and seek advice and see if we can do anything there, because that seems like a helpful and sensible suggestion. So I've asked my officers to raise that with Heritage Lottery Fund and other national funders, so that we can better understand that issue and start to get to grips with whether or not that is possible. So I hope that's helpful, and feel free to come back and ask us again about that issue as we move forward, and hopefully as we get some answers on those questions. Thank you very much. Thank you, Nigel. Okay, on to item number 9, which is the minutes of the meeting held on the 4th of June 2024. Are members content that the minutes are an accurate record of the meeting? Any improvements, suggestions? No? Okay, in which case we move on to the substantive part of the meeting. But before we do that, can I just introduce Rebecca, please, who some of you will have not met maybe. Rebecca, well, you can introduce yourself. How about that? That's probably a better way.
Hello everyone, I'm Rebecca Brooks. I'm the new Director of Legal and Governance here at the Combined Authority, started last week, so replace Steve Davenport.
Bro, thank you very much. Okay, all right, in which case on to item number 10, please, which is the English Devolution Bill, as we were talking about. Devolution, so this is the paper that updates board members on the process the MCA is progressing to ready ourselves for deeper and broader devolution. The government clearly have made some big commitments that I was pleased to see about devolution. I've been working closely with us as mayors to talk about that, and MCAs, and Andy is here to update us on that. Andy.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, as the Mayor sets out, there are some big moving parts to the work on devolution nationally. The 3 pieces of legislation planned announced in the King's Speech, the English Devolution Bill, which we expect a white paper to be published potentially in the next couple of weeks, informing that, a planning and infrastructure bill, and a better buses bill. And those 3 pieces of legislation directly and indirectly impact on South Yorkshire and the MCA. In the English Devolution Bill, until we see it, we don't know what will be in it, but we do expect the commitment around the single settlement, or integrated settlement as it's currently being called. It might have another name before it becomes legislation, but we expect to see that in there. different ways of the MCAs formally engaging and having a route into government rather than the ad hoc sort of relationship by relationship model that's happened. And similarly, a more standard approach to unlocking devolution deals, moving away from that bidding, competitive, asymmetric devolution process. So those are the three pieces of legislation. It's just worth noting that the MCA agreed a level 4 devolution deal back in March with the previous government. Our expectation is that the things in that deal agreed, most of those will come through in the legislation, the primary legislation in the English devolution bill. So that's where our sort of pre-existing, pre-cooked deal is likely to be locked in. And we'll update members if there's a big variance between those things. We're also expecting, and the paper makes reference to the local growth plan, a statutory document on which our kind of one of our sort of key relationships with the government will be formed. That work has started, and the paper sets out some of the time frames around that. That is a moving feast as well. And all of these things, because they have implications on how we work, how we engage with the government, how we as an MCA will have to operate. We've established an internal group which is sort of understanding the readiness work we need to do as an MCA and partners to be ready to influence the legislation and what's coming out of it, understand it better so we can communicate it better, but actually be ready so we can take advantage of any of the opportunities it unlocks. The paper doesn't seek a decision, but it does seek to inform, make sure you're all up to speed and aware of the work underway. That's it.
Brilliant, thank you. Any comments or questions on the paper? I know you've all seen it and read it, we've talked about it a fair bit. Any comments or questions? No. I know we talked previously about how South Yorkshire, devolution in South Yorkshire is sort of deepening really and being embedded more and more, and I think more reflective of the kind of partnerships that we have and the way in which we're working. So this is just another step in the journey in my view, and I look forward to seeing where that goes. So board members are asked to note the publication of the English Devolution Bill and the opportunities this presents to South Yorkshire, note the work undertaken to prepare the work on a local growth plan, note the work being undertaken to ensure the MCA is prepared for the devolution of new powers and resources, note the intention to develop a submission to the spending review focused on securing resources to deliver agreed MCA priorities based on a 1-year settlement for 25-26, then a 3-year single settlement deal from 2026. Thank you very much. Thanks, Andy. On to item number 11, please, which is the investment zone update, and Tom is going to lead us through that conversation. Oh, sorry. Okay, Joseph, over to you. You're doing a great job, Sarah, keeping up. Yep.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm here to just give a very quick update on the South Yorkshire Investment Zone. So just as a reminder that in July 23, we were announced as the first investment zone in the UK, and we are still only one of 2 that has been agreed to date. In May this year, we received the initial tranche of funding for the investment zone, and we signed a MOU giving us 5 years of funding equaling 80 million, split 60% towards capital, 40% to revenue. In the intervening period, we've been working with our partners to look at our different intervention packages, and we have split this into 3 key areas. One is around increasing demand for support in the area. The second one is around business ecosystem interventions, and the third element is a responsive fund to help us land further investment into the place. We have set out in the paper who is eligible for support, giving some definitions around the advanced manufacturing focus of the investment zone, and the paper is here to inform and seek expressions of interest on where you would like to be provided with more detail.
Tom, anything you want to add? No? Okay, brilliant. Anybody like to, any comments or questions about the IZ? No? Okay. I mean, the IZ is, I think, a huge opportunity for South Yorkshire. And I'm pleased that we were able to get off the blocks quickly enough to get the funding. That's not been the case at other MCAs, and I know that they found that a bit frustrating, but we are in a great place thanks to the work that's been done by officers and by colleagues across the council. So thank you very much for all the work that you put into it, because it is a big opportunity, like I say, and it is going to move us forward. Can I please ask that the board note the update on year one activity of the South Yorkshire investment zone and to indicate if additional detail is required on any specific elements of the investment zone? No, but no. Okay, brilliant. Thank you, Joseph. On to item number 12, which is pathways to work. And Steve, I believe you're going to introduce it.
Okay, thanks, Oliver. Obviously, this report gives an update of where we are in relation to the Pathways to Work programme that has been initially developed in Barnsley, but with support from the MCA and now being expanded across the rest of South Yorkshire. The issue of worklessness or economic inactivity, as it's now called, is something that's bedevilled South Yorkshire since the industrial decline in the late 80s and 1990s, and sadly it's still something intergenerationally that's still with us. Interestingly now, it's now a national issue, so it's broader than just those post-industrial communities and has become a real problem for central government because we now lack, according to many of the economic institutes that research these ideas, we now lack a sufficient workforce to get the kind of growth that the government is looking for. So clearly we have to take that workforce from this economically inactive group. When we've examined this, we know clearly there are substantial challenges to people in this category, principally health, but very often accompanied by caring responsibilities, transport issues, education skills and so on, which, if you like, add to the difficulties people have. What the report has done is the biggest examination of this client group that's ever been done in the UK. It's talked to the people themselves about what the problems are and from their perspective what the solutions might be. And what it just does suggest is a range of recommendations, which I will not go through them all this afternoon, you'll be pleased to know, but we need a much more personalised approach to getting people back into work because of those challenges that we face, and suggests a methodology in which that could take place and how we can use existing programmes much more effectively, as I say, to support people back into employment. So we think this is not only relevant for South Yorkshire, but has national implications as well. The report was launched in Barnsley by the new Secretary of State, Liz Kendall. We are now in discussions with the government because we would like, if at all possible, to run a pilot programme across South Yorkshire in the 4 districts to support people who really do need help. It does mean working in partnership with others. If it's health, we're talking obviously about the NHS being involved. If it's skills, it's colleges and other organisations. If it's caring responsibilities, then clearly things like social service and social care have got to be involved as well. So it is really going to be a multidisciplinary approach. But nonetheless, we do think the opportunities are absolutely huge, that there are a lot of people ready to work if the circumstances are right. We do need employers to engage with this. Clearly, there's 2 sides to this coin. One side are the people themselves looking for employment, but the other side is making sure we've got the employment opportunities with businesses in South Yorkshire for them to take, but also for those businesses to be flexible in the way they recruit and employ people so that this group aren't disadvantaged. So a very complex, but nonetheless an incredibly important piece of work. Hopefully, if we can persuade the government to run a pilot in South Yorkshire, that would be great, and we can start to address some of the serious issues that the report raises.
Brilliant, thank you. Any comments or questions?
Thank you. I'll just add a few remarks and start by saying thank you to Steve and Barnsley for taking the lead on this important piece of work. As we heard from Secretary of State Liz Kendall in her first major speech in the job in Barnsley, tackling economic inactivity and helping people get back into work is a top priority for the new government. So this is timely, and I really welcome that ongoing dialogue with the government around developing that pilot. I really welcome the fact that all 4 local authorities and the MCA are now working together to develop that set of proposals, and it's clear that those proposals will be specific to each of our regions. In Sheffield, we've got kind of hyper-local support that's provided through our voluntary and community sector to help people back into work. that's a model that's we found success with. That will then be part of any future work, and we can each learn from each other as we move forward with this. But this is positive, and I think we can kind of speak with one voice as a region now, and in putting our sort of best foot forward to government and saying we've got something here that we want to work with you on.
Brilliant, thank you. Any other comments? No, I mean, I just echo that really. Like, it's been brilliant piece of work led by Barnsley. The fact that Liz came up for her first major speech, I think speaks to the value that it offers for what is a massive priority for the new government. So to be in the sort of driving seat and the front seat of that conversation is really welcome. Also, put on record my thanks to Alan Milburn as well for the work that he's done on the commission and behind the scenes. It's been incredibly welcome. Okay, can I ask that the board please endorse the Pathways to Work Commission's report and its national recommendations in full, commit to the regional recommendations in the report, and thirdly, commit to work collaboratively across South Yorkshire to further develop the next phase of the proof of concept proposals, and commit to work closely with central government to identify a absolutely substantial funding for a pilot. All agreed? Great, thank you very much. Okay, on to item number 13, please, which is the capital outturn report. Going to be led by Gareth and I believe Laurie. Yeah.
Hi, Laurie Thomas is the author of the report and she'll lead us off on this.
Thank you and good afternoon. This is the Capital Investment Outturn report, which provides a summary of the MCA Capital Investment Programme as at the end of March 23-24. It provides a detail of the scale, status, location of investment, as well as a scheme-by-scheme narrative and some quite nice pictures. It highlights the range of exciting developments that are taking place across the region through the wide variety of funding sources that we have available to the MCA. It brings to life the record levels of investment made during the last financial year and also outlines the huge amount of ongoing development work that's taking place across the region. All the schemes that are presented in the report have previously been approved by the MCA or are in development and will come through the board in the future. And the collation of the report has been a real collaborative effort with thanks to the teams across each of the local authorities for their contributions. It's been a real labour of love, this one, but hopefully it gives you a nice flavour and it's something that we'd perhaps like to do on an ongoing basis.
I mean, I definitely think it's something we would like to do on an ongoing basis. Absolutely. Thank you. Would you like to add anything?
No, I think the document itself is testament to all the hard work that's going on throughout local authorities across the region. Often that work goes unnoticed, but there are programme teams, delivery teams, legal finance support teams across each of the local authorities who have contributed to these projects, so we're incredibly grateful for their efforts.
Thank you.
Thanks, Oliver. Just to very quickly add to that, in the past, I think we have reported these programmes just simply in writing, past them, the MCA has made the necessary decisions. But over the last couple of cycles, a great deal of work's gone in to try and bring them to life with the images and the photographs and actually, I think it really does now begin to tell the story of the scale of investment, the impact it's having on individual places and in each council area. And it certainly makes me smile every time I see it. So thanks, Oliver.
Any other comments or questions? I think I would just say, look, in answer to the question that we had at the beginning of the meeting, I said that clearly we don't have as much money as we would like in South Yorkshire. There are a bunch of things we would all like to do that we can't do because we don't have the funding and the resources to be able to do it. But I think what this report shows is that where we do have the capability and the capacity, we are making huge strides in terms of supporting those priorities that we have as a region and individual places have. So, for instance, just looking through the report, clearly the work going on in Doncaster, for instance, around South Yorkshire Airport City and the kind of the work to bring the airport back to life that's gone on already through the funding that we've been able to offer is a huge step forward, and kind of being able to work together again through devolution and the partnerships that we have is a really, really good thing, and long may it continue. I would like obviously to have more money. We'll be making the case for more money from government so we can do some more of those things that we would like to be able to do, particularly around things like heritage and culture. It's a big part of what we would like to be able to do in South Yorkshire. But for now, this is a brilliant testament to the work that is going on right across South Yorkshire here as well, and I'm really grateful for everybody and for the work that they've done. So thank you, Gareth. Thank you, Laurie. It's a brilliant report. Thank you. Okay, in which case, can I just ask that the board note the capital investment programme for 23-24 Outturn report? Thank you. On to item number 14, please, which is budget development 25-26. And again, this is Gary.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the first of a series of budget reports that the board will receive in the run-up to the formal decisions that will be required around the setting of the mayoral precepts and the setting of the transport levy in January, followed by the adoption of the revenue budget and capital programme in March of this year. There are a few points that I'd just like to make for the board to note. The first is that there is a significant degree of uncertainty around a number of important funding streams for the authority. In particular, the authority requires around £11 million in continuation of bus service improvement plan grant into the future to maintain the current network. And we also require a continuation of the UK Shared Prosperity Fund to fund some of the really important schemes around business support, access to skills, and social fabric community cohesion level schemes that are really important to us. We have a number of other grant funding streams that are approaching a cliff edge in March around brownfield housing and a number of capacity funding streams as well. So we've made representation to government as part of the autumn budget and spending review processes around these, and we await notification around continuation of funding into the new year. The report notes for the first time that we've begun to integrate police and crime budget activity into the MCA's formal budget reporting, and it notes some of the challenges ahead for police budgets, particularly around the savings targets that they are required to make into the near term. So the report sets out the process that we'll go through to develop budget proposals, the engagement that's already begun with the Director of Finance Group, the one-to-one engagement that we'll have with the leader group before Christmas, and then the formal decisions that will be required. The report's also asking for a little bit of housekeeping around the commitment of some money to a tram repair scheme that is required. But I'm happy to take any questions at that point. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments or questions for Gary? So on this, we talk at these meetings about these items, and clearly you've all seen the papers and your officers have gone through them. We're having these conversations constantly, but I do think it's worth mentioning for anybody that's watching online just how important some of these conversations are for the future of services in South Yorkshire. Particularly Gareth has already referenced two of them, and I've said this to the government already, so I'm happy to say it in public about the need for funding, particularly through BSIP. So bus service improvement plan funding is what is essentially propping up our network as we speak, and if we don't get that amount of money that we need for our buses in the next few months, bus services are going to decline even further again, and that will be a hammer blow to some of our communities who rely on bus services, and so we desperately need more investment and funding from government for our bus services, and the same goes for the Shared Prosperity Fund. The Shared Prosperity Fund is supporting a huge amount of work that's going on across South Yorkshire. I know that in Rotherham it's supported, for instance, 700 people back into work. A hugely important piece of work that's going in there, and that's the same right across all our 4 local authorities. The Shared Prosperity Fund is a really important work stream and funding stream, and we again need that to be maintained, if not increased. So we are making representations to the government. I've asked them repeatedly, and I hope that they will be able to give us some good news in the next few months. Does anybody have any other questions or comments before we get to the recommendation? Okay, can I just ask then the board approve, note the process and identify note the process and identified budget issues for the forthcoming financial year. Number 2, approve the proposals to transfer £5 million of anticipated additional Treasury management income into reserves. And 3, approve the revised Treasury management strategy. Number 4, approve the granting of a long-term lease to the City of Doncaster Council for part of the Mexborough mini interchange site. And 5, approve the Commercial Street bridge work at an estimated cost of £0.6 million to be funded from capital receipts. Are we all happy? Yeah, great, thank you very much. Okay, in which case we're on to item number 15, programme approvals, and a hat trick from Gary, please.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the usual programme approvals report, just building on the capital outturn report that we've just received. We're seeking approval from the board to invest into a number of schemes and delegated authority for officers to make a judgment on a number of other schemes that are very close to the decision point but haven't yet completed their process through the assurance framework. In Barnsley, we've got the Worsbridge One World Transpennine Trail Scheme, which links up a number of active travel schemes together, and we really like. In Rotherham, we've got the Snail Yard and Tempo Borough Business Zone Scheme that, again, come out with really good benefits cost ratios. And in Sheffield, we've got the Attercliffe Waterside Scheme, which is a really significant housing development within the east end of the city. We've got the South Yorkshire Innovation Fund that has now been brought forward using gain share money from the South Yorkshire Renewal Fund. That is a South Yorkshire-wide scheme that we're also particularly keen to advocate for. Aside from programme approvals, the report is also asking for authorities to accept a number of grant funding streams. So the region has received a funding allocation associated with a music hub for South Yorkshire, grant associated with our Connected by Water, a flood mitigation and alleviation programme, and then funding associated with intelligent traffic management and biodiversity net gain. So I'm happy to propose all schemes to the board and take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments or questions for Gareth?
Thank you. Just to pick up on a number of those approvals, the Attercliffe Waterside scheme that Gareth mentioned there is really significant. This will lead to 1,000 homes being built in the Attercliffe area of Sheffield, for the first significant new homes in the east end of the city for many years, and it will have a real transformative impact alongside the work that's being developed around the Olympic Legacy Park and is part of our Attercliffe regeneration plans, so much to be welcomed there. The music hub, I think I'll just touch on. I think that's really good news for the region, and congratulations to everyone who's involved in this successful launch last Wednesday. And then the last one I'll just touch on is Connected by Water. I think this is a really important scheme, and one that we sort of, as we head into the winter, we'll see the value of, I'm sure. We're heading towards the first anniversary of Storm Babette, and the importance of flood management schemes is paramount, and so schemes like this are crucial. So thanks to colleagues who are involved in that work.
Agree with all of that. Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions for Gareth? No? Okay. All right. Could I ask that the board approve the recommendations as written in the report? Thank you very much. Okay, on to item number 16, please. Skills programme approvals. We're joined by Fliss, but Steve, is there anything you want to say to introduce? No? Okay, all right. In which case, Fliss, over to you.
Thank you, Chair, and members of the board. So this is a paper that asks you to note 2 bids that have gone into central government, one for skills boot camps of £5 million, and then also an extension to our successful work in WIN proposal as well. And if successful with both of those, delegate authorities to make sure that we can enter into contracts and extend contracts there. In addition to that, there are a number of technicalities that we're asking approval for. As we've continued to deliver successfully in our Delegated Adult Skills Fund, we're asking for greater flexibilities within the current parameters we have at the moment to hope get us to 100% of delivery, and that is a significant improvement since we've had the Devolve funding. So therefore a number of technicalities that will help improve performance and to benefit our residents and businesses. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you. Any comments or questions for Fliss? No? Okay. All right. Strap in. I'm going to read a long one. Okay. Could I please then ask that the board delegate authority to the Executive Director, Growth, Business and Skills, in consultation with the Portfolio Lead for Skills and Employment, Section 73, and Monitoring Officer, to agree revised in-year increases to ASF and FCFJ grant and procured learning organisations in line with the proposed performance management flexibilities from 2023-24 academic year onwards. Number 2, approve an allocation of up to £1 million from ASF reserves to fund overperformance in academic year 23-24 if total delivery exceeds annual allocation. Number 3, note the decision of the Head of Paid Service made in consultation with the Portfolio Lead for Skills and Employment to make an application for up to £5 million of funding from the Department of Education to deliver Skills Bootcamps Wave 6, made as a matter of urgency to meet the deadline for grant applications of the 31st of August 2024. Number 4, delegate authority to the Executive Director, Growth, Business and Skills, in consultation with the Portfolio Lead for Skills and Employment, Section 73, and Monitoring Officer, to accept grant from the Department for Education for up to £5 million to deliver Skills Bootcamps Wave 6 in financial year 25-26. Number 5, note the decision of the Head of Paid Service made in consultation with the Portfolio Lead for Skills and Employment, to provide indicative figures for up to £3 million of funding from the Department for Work and Pensions to deliver an extension to the Working Win Individual Placement and Support in Primary Care programme. The decision to extend the IPSPC is subject to ministerial approval within the Department for Work and Pensions. Number 6, delegate authority to the Executive Director, Growth, Business and Skills in consultation with the Portfolio Lead for Skills and Employment, Section 73 and Monitoring Officer to agree a final proposal and, if successful, accept grant from the Department for Work and Pensions for up to £3 million to deliver an extended Working Win Individual Placement and Support in Primary Care programmes across financial year 24, 25, 26, 27. And number 7, delegate authority to the Head of Paid Service in consultation with the Section 73 and Monitoring Officer to accept grant, negotiate the terms and approve entering into legal agreements for the schemes above. Are we all agreed? Please say yes. Okay, all right, great. Thank you very much. In which case, on to item number 17, which is just the delegated authority report from Martin.
Thank you, Albert. Well, you'd be delighted to know that's a very brief report. This is the standard report that comes to board and updates board members on progress of the delegated decisions given by board to MCA officers, and it runs from May 24 to August 24, and skills programmes are also separately listed. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Can I just ask that the board note the decisions and delegations made? Okay, in which case, other than any other business, that is the end of the meeting, in which case can we adjourn the MCA board meeting. Thank you very much, and thanks for attending.